Hi, this is Sean D'Souza, and you're listening to the 3-Month Vacation Podcast. This podcast isn't some magic trick about how to work less. Instead, it's about how to really enjoy the work that you do and to enjoy your vacation time.
Should I bend my name, Mr. Cellophane? 'Cause you can look right through me, walk right by me, and never know
That was an excerpt from the musical Chicago. It's a sorrowful song sung by one of the characters who's almost permanently in the shadows. No matter where he goes or what he does, his very presence is seen as inconsequential.
right through me, walk right by me, and never know I'm there.
Similarly, when it comes to writing articles, the objection seems like that extra. Pitched against the glamour of the more important sections of the article, no one seems to pay attention to the objections. In fact, it's possible that we're not even sure how important a role the objection plays in every article. In this episode, we'll take a deeper look at objections and how it plays a very crucial role in article writing. And as always, we'll have 3 very good reasons. And they are, first, it brings balance to the article. The second, it creates greater depth and it reduces skinny articles. And finally, it enables you to introduce a different angle to the topic. Let's start with the first one, which is about bringing balance to the article. When you write an article, it's your point of view. Let's say you're writing about green tea being amazing. Or maybe you believe that homeschooling is outstanding. Those are your points of view, aren't they? But what about the reader's point of view? The reader might not think that green tea is so great. They may enjoy rooibos instead. The reader may have sent her kid to school because that's what everybody else is doing, and homeschooling doesn't come in the equation, and she doesn't know that it's great or wonderful or whatever you think it is. However, the reason that the reader is reading that article is because she has her doubts, or maybe she's just curious. The headline of your article has pulled her in, and now she's thinking, I need to check out if there's something different in the way I should be doing things. And while the bulk of your article may be in favor of green tea or homeschooling, there's a bit of lopsidedness to the content. It's all about your point of view, and there is no counterpoint, which is why you have the objection. That's why the objection exists. And that's why the objection should be in almost every article. The objection says, I understand your point of view, and here is the biggest issue that others bring up. And you might have that doubt too. This is why this objection is here. So in one paragraph, maybe 2 paragraphs, 1 or 2 paragraphs, you can provide that balance. We can stop making the objections like Mr. Cellophane from the musical. Because as writers, we are so focused on the main contents of the article that the objection almost seems like something buried deep in our to-do list. We plan to put in the objection, but it feels like an add-on. It doesn't feel like a crucial chunk of the article. And yet, the moment you remove it from the article, your article seems to tilt dangerously to one side. I've written articles without a sense of balance. For instance, I wrote an article about how to maximize the time you have. The article was all about how we're all busy and there's never enough time to learn. And then that article went on to talk about the methods that I use to keep on learning while I'm in a supermarket queue, while I'm at the dentist, and even when I go for a walk with Renuka every day. Now, I got so wrapped up in writing my point of view that I forgot that the reader was getting a bit antsy. The learn was so one-sided that I forgot to express the fact that I'm not walking around all day trying to fill more information in my head. The reality is that I have a lot of downtime as well. Renuka and I talk a lot on our walks. We don't always listen to podcasts or audiobooks. We may talk about work in the car, or we may talk about our day. But the reader didn't know that when they were going through the article, and that was my fault. The picture the article painted was one of a strict regime, and it's not really the way that we live our lives. The client who objected to the article wanted to learn more about how we did things, but also didn't want to be obsessive about the learning experience. She realized the power of learning and how it was useful on the move, but she also wanted to have conversations. She wanted to listen to music. She wanted to enjoy nature. And she said, this is excessive that you're listening to it all the time at the dentist, at every possible place. But I'd got so bogged down with my point of view that it took an email from her to straighten me out. Then I was forced to hurriedly put in the objection, and finally we had some balance in the article. But balance is only one role for the objection. There's a second role. What is that? It prevents your article from being too wimpy, too skinny. Let's go to the second section, and you know where this is going, but let's go through it anyway. In 2016, I went to India to meet my parents, and I didn't go there for any Ayurveda treatment. However, while we were there, we walked down the road, lots of coconut trees, stuff to do, and then we take a left, and we ended up at this Ayurveda clinic. Now, Renuka was having some allergies and stuff like that, and that was the main goal, to get her to fix those allergies. But I did a test as well, and I had more problems than I thought. So I went through the treatment. My blood sugar came down, cholesterol came down, blood pressure came down. But there was also another added benefit. When I walked in, I was close to 89 kilos, which is 190 pounds. And all the walking and all the dieting that we'd done before that didn't help in reducing those last 4 or 5 kilos. And 10 days into the treatment, I lost those 5 kilos, which is about 10 pounds. And it has been a permanent weight loss. And you probably know that we eat quite a lot if you've been watching us on Facebook. So now Renuka has a complaint. She says, in the photographs, I look gaunt, almost too skinny. Skinny may be the preferred option for many of us in our day-to-day world, but it causes serious problems in your article because it starts to get very anorexic. You start your article, you write 100, 200, 500 words, but then you run out of steam or you run out of content or both, which is when it's time to get over to the other side of the fence. It's time to think of the topic from a different point of view. And that's when the article gets a bit charged up because now you're trying to tear down your idea in a way. You're not trying to say, oh, this is my idea and I'm stuck with it. You're trying to look at it from the other side. It's like being in a one-person debate team. You make a point, then you jump across, and you make a point for the opposition. And it's precisely when you're on the opposing side that you see a bit of their worldview. This allows you to put in a paragraph, sometimes even 2 paragraphs into the article. Even if your paragraph contains just 3 or 4 lines, you're likely to have added 80 words. 2 paragraphs? Well, that's 160 words. Now consider that a lot of articles are about 800 words. Just a couple of paragraphs and you have beefed up that article by 200 words. That's almost 1/4 of the article right there in the objection. And it's not to say that skinny articles aren't good. When I first started writing, I would write no more than 800 to 900 words. But now the articles are between 1,000 to 5,000 words. And time and again, my wife Renuka will tell me, write shorter articles as well. We know that Google loves long articles, but readers need a mix. They need long, detailed articles, but they also need that short one. Yes, they need excruciating detail, And then they also need something that's a quick 7-minute read or a 7-minute listen. And this concept of writing long and short, detailed and skinny, it applies to audio, it applies to video, it applies especially to article writing. Lean articles work amazingly well, but you have to have variety in your work. However, when you need to pack in the detail, objections really help. Does this mean that skinny articles don't need objections? Of course they do. Any point of view requires a counterpoint. But you may choose to write just a line or two instead of 2 paragraphs, and then your skinny article is still skinny. If you're writing a huge article, 1,000 words, 5,000 words, you can have long, detailed objections, and this can be strewn through the article itself. And this gives it instant bulk. When writing, we don't often think of the objections. The material that we're writing is what we really want to say. The objections seem almost counterintuitive. Even so, you can judge for yourself how they not only add bulk to the article, but they also make you a greater authority in the eyes of the client. Even if your objection isn't the exact one that they had in mind, they're reading the article and they go, "This is not my objection, I have another objection." Even if that's the case, it still drives the point across to the reader. It still gets them to realize that you've been thinking about the counterpoint, the other point of view. And sometimes, often in fact, they will write back to you and they will ask you, "Well, what about this? Oh, I don't agree with this." And this is a significant advantage because you didn't consider this until now. And now you're answering a specific point to a particular person and adding to the body of knowledge on your site, on your newsletters. But it's also made this client very happy because you're answering their specific objection. It's given you that different point of view, but now you've made a connection with the client. And this brings us to the end of the second part. We've looked at balance, we've looked at depth, but there's one more thing that the objection does quite successfully. It can introduce a completely different view of the article all on its own. How do you come up with most objections? It's quite easy when you stop to think about it. Look at the headline of your article. What does the headline say? Play devil's advocate to that headline. Go the opposite way. Now what you've done is you've created a headline. So let's say the headline is "How to Run the 4-Minute Mile." What's the devil's advocate version of it? It would be, "But what if I haven't run that 4-minute mile in several years? Can I still do it?" In effect, the objection counteracts your headline. And that's probably the easiest way to figure out the objection to your article. Some objections may have no connection to the headline. Take, for instance, this article itself. In the second part, there was an objection about skinny articles. The objection was, can we dispense with the objection when writing skinny articles? As in, can we get rid of that objection when we're writing skinny articles? Now, if you were to go back to the headline, you would find that there is no relation to the headline whatsoever. The headline was all about the importance of the objection, but suddenly, as we're writing, we see another point of view creeping up. What's happening is there's a bit of a deviation, there's a new point of view. When you start writing an article, you have a bit of an outline, but as you progress, it's not uncommon to see the article take a life of its own. The objections that arise have to counter the point that you brought up. And since the point is already a bit unexpected, the objection becomes quite an interesting novelty. It's quite hard to anticipate this level of novelty when outlining your article. You go there, you sit, you have to finish this stuff, and you have this outline. You don't see these objections popping up. You're so focused on the task of outlining, of writing, that one objection, let alone many objections, don't seem to be around at all. They're almost like they're playing Mr. Cellophane. And once you get deeper into the article, These strange and wonderful objections seem to pop up quite unexpectedly. Often an objection or two may pop up while you're writing, but they also pop up while you're discussing the point. When Renuka and I walk, I bring up the point I'm covering, and then she'll drop in her objection, something that's completely unrelated to the headline. This happens even when I'm in 5000 BC, which is our membership site, and I'll be writing in the forum, and I write in chunks, so I'll write X amount of text in a day, and then clients will read that, and then they'll come up with objections, and so there's this ongoing discussion. But often this objection is not related to the main topic or the headline. It's something that came up because of what I wrote. And so it gives you that opportunity to add to the article, to make it more robust, to make it nice and chunky, nice and detailed, which in itself brings up another objection. What are you going to do if you have 24 objections? Now, an article comprises of certain sections. There's a structure to an article, even though it just looks like a whole mass of text. So it has the first 50 words, it has the main content, it has the examples, the mistakes, the objections, and we can't simply switch the objections from Mr. Cellophane to Mr. A-level movie star. In most cases, you shouldn't be doing that. You can get in 1 or maybe 2 objections in your article, and that's going to add at least a couple of paragraphs. Any more, and then what you're doing is now you're tilting the article the other way. It's all objection and nothing to do with the core article itself. And if you get to the stage where you've got so many objections and you think, wow, I didn't know there were so many objections. Let me answer these objections. Well, make that an article all by itself. And if you've written 3 objections and that's an 800-word article, and you have 6 objections, make that a second article. And you have 9 objections, make it a third article. Make it a series. Just don't try and stuff everything into that single article. And that's pretty much it. That's what we've covered in today's podcast. We covered 3 things. We started with the balance aspect, and the objection just brings balance. So whether you're doing a presentation, you're talking to someone, you're doing anything, any kind of communication, the objection becomes a very counterbalanced kind of thing. It doesn't have to be very big. It can be just a couple of paragraphs, maybe 1 objection, maybe 2 objections, but it creates the balance. The second thing that it does almost instantly is it creates depth. So it gives this solidity, this bulk to the article, to your conversation, to your presentation, and it creates this depth. It reduces skinny articles. And finally, it enables you to introduce a different angle to the topic. Often you're quite clear what the article is all about and what the objection is all about. And then you start writing, and suddenly you realize, wait a second, there's this objection that's cropping up. Or if you write like I do in a forum, then clients come in and they have objections. And so this kind of creates more content all by itself. It creates a deviation that's very interesting. And so what we learn from this is that objections have a power. It's a very quiet power, but it needs to be there. So think of the objection the next time. And if you have any objections to this article, write to me at Sean@psychotactics.com. That brings us to the end of this podcast. Let's find out what's happening in psychotactics land. In January, we're going to have the Info Products course, and that's the home study. We're skipping December completely. We're going all the way to January, 25th of January. That's when the Info Products course will be available. If you'd like to see what's inside, kind of, hey, what's this all about? Well, there's psychotactics.com/info goodies. So go there and you'll get all these goodies, and then you can decide if you want to go on the waiting list. We only have 35 copies. I know it's weird. I've said it's weird before. I'll say it's weird again. But we only sell 35 copies at a time. And if you are among the first 35 that has been approved, because you're on the waiting list, then you will get the Info Products course. So that's the 25th of January. Go there beforehand, get your goodies, and enjoy them. And also there's 5000 BC. Remember that 5000 BC is not just a place where you have information. There's loads of information. Most of the series that you've been listening to about coaching, about all the kinds of things, uniqueness, etc., they're all already in 5000 BC and in a great amount of detail, more than here on the podcast. But the difference is that we're a bunch of introverts. There's no grandstanding there. The motto of 5000 BC is be kind, be helpful, or be gone. It's one of cooperation. And the cooperation really helps us get the idea out, get the objections in, and then refine the idea, make it stronger, make it robust, make the business robust. And, at the end of it, that's what we're really aiming for. We're aiming for a better life, some more money possibly, but generally a better life. And I think you'll find 5000 BC to be this nice warm place where you can hang around with people that think similarly to you, but are not afraid to object, to show you, hey, there are some flaws in your working. And I think for that reason alone, 5000 BC is great. You can also ask me a whole bunch of questions. Those questions get turned into massive articles. So it's almost like a book is being written for you. And that's me, Sean D'Souza from Psychotactics Land. I'll say bye for now. Bye-bye. Still listening? By the time you listen to this podcast, we'll be on our way back from Mexico and we'll be back in New Zealand. And this is the time of the year that I really enjoy. In December, all of Auckland just clears out. It's like walking in your own city, and it's warm, so you can go out there in t-shirt and shorts. Not that it makes any difference to me. I'm in t-shirt and shorts the whole year, winter or summer or autumn or any weather. But it's nice to know that you're stepping out and it's not freezing cold. Anyway, that's my favorite time of year, simply because everyone clears out and I just have a room that I go to. It's called a summer room, and I just lie there. I've got this pile of books that I've been accumulating the whole year. Not necessarily, in fact, not at all any business books. They're all about travel and about history and stuff like that. So I accumulate these books. I don't necessarily go through them during the year, but they're there for December. And then I'll sit in the summer room and I'll read the books and I'll watch endless amount of Netflix. In fact, that's what Renuka and I do. We kind of try to catch up on almost 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months of Netflix in one go. And the reason why the city is so empty is because Kiwis really like their vacations. They just clear out on around the 20th of December. And then pretty much until mid-late Jan, there's almost no one around. Still cafes and restaurants and stuff running, but all the companies are closed and everyone has cleared out of the city. Everyone has probably cleared out of the country. I don't know where they go, but I'm glad that they do because it's very, very quiet, which is what I enjoy. That's me, Sean D'Souza, saying bye for now. Bye-bye.